Start whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Still writing more.
Hey, Mick, where are you from?
Arnold's Park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okoboji, Arnold's
Yeah.
Park. All right.
Okoboji, yeah. It's
All right. How's your golf game?
I have to have back surgery 2 weeks from today. So
Oh,
I have
yeah.
not been
My back's
sleeping.
been bothering me, too. I went to the chiropractor all winter long, and then about like a week before, my back, I don't know what I did to it. And I went back to him, and I'm like, dude, you got to get me fixed. They said it's like a week away.
You know, I'm having it done at Mayo. I went to Mayo and told them I played basketball till I was 49.
Mhm.
Because I've always tried to be in shape. Now I look like a pumpkin with just sticks out of it. He says to me, that's probably what did it, running up and down at that old age.
Yeah. Welcome, everyone. Why don't we go ahead and get started? If you could please stand and join me in a moment of silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. My name is Todd. I am an alcoholic. My sobriety date is July 31st, 2018. Welcome to the 7 p.m. Thursday night meeting, the Treasure Map Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. Before we get started, remember to silence or turn off your cell phones. We send out a special welcome to any visitors from out of town. If you please stand and be recognized. Also, is there anybody here that's visiting Treasure Map meeting for their first time? Please stand and be recognized. Finally, is there anyone here who is at their first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting? Please stand and be recognized. Bunch of veterans, cool. Okay, the Treasure Map Group of Alcoholics Anonymous believes in working the 12 steps as outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous with the sponsor. There are many home group members here tonight that are willing to be sponsors. If you are new or if you don't have a sponsor, you can stop over at the side table here during the break, and we'll get you names and phone numbers of any home group members that are willing to be sponsors. Okay, this is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. We are glad you're here, especially newcomers. In keeping with our singleness of purpose and our third tradition, which states that the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. We ask that all who participate confine their comments to their problems with alcohol. We want to make a special mention to our online listeners. We have heard from many of you and are trying to make your experience with us even better. Thank you for being with us tonight. If during this meeting you experience a lapse in hearing us, please post a note on our secret group Facebook page. We will be monitoring it throughout the meeting. Monthly online fulfillment of Tradition 7 is available today. Any support of the treasure map meeting goes to support our meeting and its bills, events, speaker costs, birthday celebrations, and newcomer welcoming meetings. To begin the Tradition 7 fulfillment, stop at the side table or just go to www.treasuremapmeeting.com. In addition, the Treasure Map Group is a proud financial supporter of the local Sioux Falls Intergroup, Southeast South Dakota AA District 5, AA statewide in South Dakota Area 63, and worldwide AA through World Services in New York. Also, if you give online, please grab one of these tags and place it in the basket when it's passed. We also have over at the side table our little treasure map, kind of a business card thing, which are great for meeting people. You can put your name and phone number on the back. It's a great way of spreading the message of AA and the treasure map meeting. Our free Big Book Study worksheets at www.treasuremapmeeting.com. Many are using these sheets to assist in their own personal Big Book studies, complement their sponsorship duties, and aid in their step work. These sheets should not be considered as the final word on the Big Book. Only one guide that has been helpful to us. We realize we know only a little. As far as our online goes, in the last 15 months, 16 months, over 8,000 listeners have heard live or re-listened to our speakers. And we thank you and we appreciate you and we desire to continue to serve you. Special events. We got a busy summer coming up. June 22nd is the 8th annual Bike and Burgers Ride. And I was corrected, it's not bicycles, you get to ride a motorcycle. It starts at the West Side AA in Sioux Falls and goes to Brookings, and they have lunch at Nick's Burgers. July 13th, Sioux Falls Intergroup Annual Picnic at Falls Park. July 20th, Area 63 Assembly in Pierce, South Dakota. July 19th through the 21st is the North Dakota Young People's AA in Bismarck, North Dakota. July 26th through the 28th is the Paha Sapa Mountain Conference in Deadwood, South Dakota. And on August 2nd through the 4th, it's the Bad Axe Men's Retreat in Park Rapids, Minnesota. The Treasure Map meeting is co-sponsoring a bus trip to the International AA Convention in July from the 2nd through the 5th in the year 2020. We've got flyers over on the side table for that. District 5, Corrections and Treatment Committee. We're always looking for folks to run meetings at the Minnehaha County Jail, Work Release Center, and the South Dakota Penitentiary. A background check is required and a minimum of 3 months of continuous sobriety. You can contact Matt M. and that's matt@mcexpert.com. And it looks like next week we will be having our group conscious meeting after the meeting. And that should do it. Amy, do you have anything else seems like there was something else on here that you were involved in? Maybe not.
2020 spring conference.
What's that?
2020 spring conference.
2020 spring conference.
We're meeting the second Sunday of June at 4:30 at Westside to get prepared for the spring conference in April of 2020. If you're looking for a way to get involved.
Thanks, Amy. Okay, tonight is our meeting will focus, we're not really going to focus on any step. We've got a great speaker from Arnold's Park, Iowa tonight. He's going to share his experience, strength, and hope with us. But if you would now please welcome Amy to read How It Works.
Thank you. Amy, alcoholic.
Great.
How it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to the simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates, they are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. As some of these we bought, we thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we cannot. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cutting, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order, I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could ever relieve our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought.
No problem. Thank you, Amy. Now if we could have Chris come and read the 12 traditions.
Chris Dahlheim, alcoholic. 12 traditions. 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he expresses himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. But they do not govern. 3, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6, an AA group ought never endorse or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, or prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those who they serve. 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, 1, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. And 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, we talk a lot about our at the home group membership at the Treasure Map group because we believe it is vital to our recovery. What does it mean to be a home group member? Here's a brief excerpt from the AA General Service Conference approved pamphlet on the AA group. Traditionally, most AA members through the years have found it important to belong to one group that they call their home group. This is the group where they accept service responsibilities and try to sustain friendships. And although all members are usually welcome at all groups and feel at home at any of these meetings, the concept of home group has still remained the strongest bond between the AA member and the fellowship. With membership comes the right to vote on issues that might affect the group and also affect AA as a whole, a process that forms the very cornerstone of AA's service structure. As with all group conscious matters, each AA member has one vote, and this ideally is voiced through the home group. Over the years, the very essence of AA strength has remained with our home group, which for many members becomes our extended family. Once isolated by our drinking, we find in the home group a solid, continuing support system, friends, and often a sponsor. We also find firsthand through the group's workings how to place principles before personalities in the interest of carrying the AA message. Talking about her own group, a member says, part of my commitment is to show up at the home group meetings, greet newcomers at the door, and be available to them. Not only for them, but for me. My fellow group members are the people who know me, listen to me, and steer me in straight when I'm off in left field. They give me their experience, strength, and AA love, enabling me to pass it on to the alcoholic who still suffers. If you're interested in making the Treasure Map group your home group, stop by the side table during the break or after the meeting, and we'll be more than welcome to welcome you. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Matt. He'll be our short speaker tonight. Matt's from Sioux Falls, so please join me in welcoming Matt. You know what? Excuse me, Matt. I mean Pat. I'm dyslexic.
Sorry, buddy. Yep.
Hi, my name is Pat. One thing's for sure, I'm an alcoholic. Thanks, Tom, for the introduction. Welcome, everybody. I just wanted to share my story. My sobriety date is September 24th, 1993. How does one stay sober 25 years? I will tell you that I did a lot of research before I got here. I learned how to drink really well. I learned how to black out. I learned how to drive drunk. I learned how to pass out in very strange places. I learned to have relationships with people I didn't know. There were a lot of things that I did that honestly I didn't want to do. But alcohol freed me from the morals that I had grown up with, freed me from the fear that I had of talking to the opposite sex, made me brave when someone said something I didn't like. I have scars to prove that. I was a fighter and a loser. So I just had a lot of experience with drinking. I thought a lot of it was fun. I had a blast, I thought, for a long time. And what I found out was I kept having so much fun, I wasn't getting anywhere in life. I had made a lot of plans to be somebody. You know, I had a good family that I came from. They were all successful. I have sisters that were all in the medical field. So it was my responsibility to be somebody. And it wasn't long after I started drinking that I lost my way. I was just making minimum wage for quite a while. The only way I ever got a raise before sobriety was by changing jobs. I never got a raise. I just never was valued. I never brought value to the company that I was working for. So I had somehow talked some gal into getting married to me. And so we got married. I was 21, and we partied. She did not drink like I did, and she did not understand why I drank like I did and why I couldn't drink like she did. So our relationship became very rocky, and at some point, it got to the point where she was just wholly and solely embarrassed to be married to me. I continued to do things that were embarrassing and shameful. And eventually she couldn't stay married to me anymore, and she left. And on September 24th, I woke up to the realization, it's just some big picture in my head of what a fool I had been. And I knew that I could not drink anymore. I knew that I had to find a way to stop drinking, or I would have to kill myself, because I was so ashamed of the things that I had done, of who I had become. I hated myself. Suicide wasn't an option for me, simply because I knew I'd screw that up too. You know, I was sure that I'd fail at that attempt as well in my life. And the only other option that I could think of, while I was bawling on the living room floor, rocking back and forth like a little baby, was that my spouse at the time had known a guy that she worked with who was in AA, and he didn't drink. And so in a few months after white knuckling it for as long as I could, I decided to call AA. And so I picked up the phone and called the hotline. And I got a guy on the phone, and he said, Westside's address is here. You just take these directions to get there. The meeting's at 8 o'clock, click. And that ticked me off. So I went to go find him. I got over to Westside here in Sioux Falls, over by the arena, and I drove around the block about 12 times, trying to gain the courage to walk into an Alcoholics Anonymous building. When I finally did get the courage to open the door, I saw the longest hallway that I've ever seen in my life. At the end of it was a room probably about half as big. I'm not sure how many square feet, but it's a big room. And there were a lot of people around a lot of tables, and they were all laughing, and they were all having a good time. And it made me incredibly uncomfortable. I hadn't been in a room full of people laughing and having a good time, even after I walked in, quite a while. So I sat down and I started listening as they opened the meeting, and they talked about the topic of the day, and they were sharing their story and how they felt. And other than anger, I really hadn't been able to identify any feelings that I have in years. But my head kept doing this through the whole meeting. I was identifying with what everyone was saying. And by the end of that meeting, I had recognized that I had finally found some place that I felt a part of, people that I felt were my friends, that knew what my life was like, that had experienced life as I had, who had suffered like I suffered. And so I got into regular meetings. So there's my first clue. If I'm going to share how you stay sober 25 years, I went to a lot of meetings. I went to a lot of meetings because I had time. My relationship was getting done, and I worked, but I wasn't a real hard worker yet. I didn't put in more than 40 hours, I'll tell you that. So I went to a lot of meetings, and the second thing I would attribute to sobriety one day at a time is relationships with people at those meetings. People got to know me, and I got to know people. And I started to make friendships that looked like they might last longer than a week. I started to participate. Clue number 3. I got involved. I started to lead a meeting every Sunday night for a year and a half, co-chairing this meeting with a friend of mine there. He was getting sober the same time I was. And so that was my routine. The book tells us specifically how to get sober. And one of the things it told me was to get a sponsor. Well, I'm a picky guy. Who I hang out with, I really want to have them meet these certain criteria. I don't know if any of you are like that, but I ended up looking for someone who had what I wanted, but above all else would tell me the truth. Because I had lied to myself for so long, and I had told so many lies, I no longer knew the true stories from the false ones. I needed somebody that would tell me the truth no matter what. And there was one particular guy there that what he said always ticked me off. It always sounded like he was talking directly to me, and that he knew something about me I hadn't told anybody. So I asked him to be my sponsor, because that makes sense, right? He said yes, and he told me what the requirements were. He had some requirements. So getting a sponsor was the fourth thing that I did right. He walked me through the steps. I was very slow at walking the steps. I don't know if my IQ had really come up any, but it seemed that I drug my feet through these steps as long as I could. It didn't take more than a year to get first step down. It didn't take more than 2 years to get step 2 done. And this pattern went on for a few more years. I would not recommend this to anyone. The sobriety that I had was, if nothing else, it was a miracle, and it was precarious. My mood swings were still pretty high and low. And what I learned is that when I finally did the work and worked on these steps as I was supposed to, as the book directs us to, I made some progress. Step 5, 6, 7, 8 went pretty quickly because I had gotten to a point in my life where misery was starting to set in again, and I tried doing some work, and that did a lot of good. The kind of amends that I had to make there were not very many monetary amends that I needed to make. There weren't many amends that I needed to make that a sorry would cut it. So it took years to work on my 9th step and getting amends made. But certainly, every time I did that, it was a weight was lifted. It was always amazing how forgiving the people were, and the results were. It gave me strength to do the next one. About that time, I decided that I was ready for a relationship, and my sponsor introduced me to a gal in the program. That I wouldn't recommend to anyone either. But the way it went was we learned a lot. Her and I both, did the best we could. Both of us stayed sober through the whole thing and after. But I learned a lot in relationship. I learned that there was still a lot of change that I needed to make. And those character defects that I have and show their ugly head when I start to get close to somebody, because I still was very selfish. And so the relationships that I had started taking more time. My meetings started to fade away again. And I got involved seriously with a woman when we got married. She was also in the program, and so we were busy raising kids and working and trying to develop careers. And all of a sudden, I noticed I was lucky to be making one meeting a week, and there were stretches where I was making one meeting a week, and I wasn't doing anything for anyone else. I was simply trying to be a good husband, trying to provide for my family, and that was about it. And my spiritual life hadn't grown, and I became very complacent with life and failed to enrich my spiritual program. I was ready to leave. That relationship had found a place to rent, and I called a friend of mine who I've known for 20 years at the time. And I said, I'm ready to move out. I don't know what to do. And he presented me with a simple concept, which is what AA teaches, and that is service. Have you served her without any expectations? And my answer was pretty quick because I become a very honest person. And the answer was no, I still had expectations. He said, well, maybe you could try that. So that's what I decided to do. And immediately, the place that I had lined up for me to rent, that fell through. And I started to try every day to do the best I could for my family with no expectations. And I started to, I recommitted to going to 3 meetings a week, and I committed to service work within AA and being open to sponsorship. And That's made a tremendous difference in my life. I have a Tuesday meeting that I go to in the evening over on the east side of town, and a Saturday morning meeting at the same location, or over on Gordon Drive. And then I make this meeting. The Tuesday night meeting is my home group meeting, and so I'm nearly 100% on that. If you ever need to track me down, you can find me on a Tuesday night at 7 p.m. We started a big book study at 5:30, a few guys and I, and that's going really well. I love doing that. It's great service work, and every time that I am helping a new person, I continue to learn. Because if I'm telling them what the book says, it shines a mirror on my own life, and I have to look at myself and say, am I doing that? And so, that's what's working in my life, and that's how I got here today. I am absolutely thrilled to be sober today. Every day that I get up and I find myself still sober is a miracle, and I find that to be true of every one of you, because we drink. Alcoholics drink. That's what we do. We drink and die. So if I had ever slipped, I would have not been surprised, because that's what we do. What surprises me is that I get to a meeting, I humble myself to a God of my understanding, and I do what I'm led to do. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Yeah, this program can make you a little nervous at times, especially when you mess up a brother's name. We'll go ahead and take a short 10-minute break, and come back for our long speaker tonight. Smokers out through the door, mind your butts.
You want to hear something fun? Before the meeting, I was telling him how I call you Tom.
That's what he said when he got here. He didn't say Tom.
That's awesome.
Hey Scott, how you doing? Hey man, I was at social. You're not bad. I messed up my arm. Like 60 days. I know I started solid up until this year. I'll take you down a bad road. Yeah, I'll save it away. Grab hold of your life like that. Coffee really works on me, man. Like, I know I'm really tired. Works well. I guess I have a great
Okay, everybody, we're back. Newsflash, it is raining out. Go figure. Okay, it is my pleasure to introduce Mick from Arnold's Park, Iowa, as our main speaker tonight.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mick, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm really glad to be here, and I've really enjoyed this up until now. This is the second time I've been here. The first time I was here was the last Thursday in last October. Don M. was speaking that night, and he was our Saturday night speaker. And I really enjoyed that meeting, and I got to be friends with him ever since then. He sends me texts every morning, and they're really something. So there's always gifts that I'm getting that I didn't know that I was going to get. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'd like to thank Mike is the one that invited me, and he must have known what I was going to say because he didn't show up. But I really appreciate being here, and I am more comfortable around alcoholics and people in the program, regardless of what flavor, than anywhere else. So it's really nice being here. So what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. I've got more than one sobriety date. I'll explain that. Anybody else have any more than one sobriety date? Yeah. So I should be dead, and it's just a miracle that it really is a miracle that I'm standing here. But I was born in London, England. My parents are American. My mom and dad grew up on the eastern part of the state of Iowa. My mother's related to everybody on the eastern part of the state. And I'm the oldest of four. And my father was a civilian, worked for the Department of Defense, for the Pentagon. And I spent most of my life over in Europe. I went to 9 different schools. We traveled a lot when I was growing up. And there is alcoholism all over my family. Both my grandfathers died of alcoholism. My mom is one of 5. She's the second one in line, and her oldest brother and the sister right behind her, they both died of alcoholism, ages 58 and 45 respectively. And I have a cousin. I'm the oldest of all the cousins on both sides of the family, and the one right behind me, he died of alcoholism at 52. And I just always thought those guys didn't know how to drink, you know. And I went to Alateen, Al Dog, Al Top, everything. And I grew up overseas. My father was he was the and I can't even remember how to pronounce it. He was a division guy. He had the European theater, which means all the Air Force bases and Army bases, and there was one naval base at the time, reported up through him. So he was a very powerful man, and that's the way we grew up. I went to American schools over there. I learned how to speak German and some other things, and I learned how to get into places you're not supposed to get into over there. So I had no idea what it was like growing up over here. So I got sent to the States on my 18th birthday to go to school, and they sent me to Iowa City. And my dad told me that I played a lot of sports. When you're growing up overseas, there's nowhere for American kids to work. So 12 months a year, there's always sports. So I played a lot of football, baseball, soccer, a lot of basketball. There was a boxing team and a wrestling team. I went out for the wrestling team, and I hit this guy the first day, and they put me on the boxing team. So that tells you about my attitude. But so basically, you know, I went to school and played sports. That's all I did. I never worked. When I got over here, I got my first job in the summer. I worked 48 or 52 hours or something that first week, and I didn't know that a regular work week was 40 hours. So I was pretty much didn't know what was going on. But he told me I could go to Iowa City and go to school, and I could play football if I promised to go to dental school. So I said that's what I was doing. So, you know, he pretty much told me what I was going to do and what I was going to be, and that's just the way we lived. He got sober when I was 10, I think, and when I was, you know, before that, so I grew up in an alcoholic home, and my parents were having kids. I mean, they got married at 19 and 18, and by the time they're 23 or 24, they had 4 kids, you know. I don't have any children. I don't know how people do that. I'm the oldest of 4, and I got 2 brothers and a sister, and they manufacture kids like rabbits. I mean, they got a bunch of them, and now their kids have got a bunch of kids, and every time we get together, it's like the Rose Bowl parade. And you know, I'm not used to being around short people or kids or anything like that, but it's just a mess. So I don't see them much anymore, basically because I drove them away, and I'll get into that too. But anyway, I didn't start drinking until I went to Iowa City, and I played football in high school. I played football a little bit in college, and once again, I'm the new kid. You know, I'm in another area now. I'm in a different country again, and I'm around people I don't know. And you know, I was at a big university, and it was something until I met some people that belonged to a fraternity. You want to join a fraternity? I didn't know the difference between, you know, a fraternity and a fruit bowl. So yeah, I joined a fraternity, and it turned out there was just a bunch of guys lived together, and they partied all the time. And it was great. And that's the way so I went to school every year in the 70s. And it was a lot of fun. You know, I got to the point where I could go to dental school, and I went to dental school, and I didn't like it, so I quit. Because my dad told me, if you don't like being a dentist, you can quit. So I quit, basically just to piss him off. But I didn't want to do that, so I went into engineering, and I graduated in engineering. And I did everything that we do when you're in college. It was just a lot of fun. And I went to work at John Deere, and about age 22 is when I started getting married. I thought that, that was not my strong suit either. But, you know, I've been married it seems like every time I got drunk, I got married, and that really didn't work out too well. But it just seemed like the thing to do. Everybody else was getting married, so I got married. And, you know, the first one wasn't very open-minded. She would expect me to give up dating, and I thought that was kind of a limited view to look at things. And so that didn't work. But by the time I got to work, I met the second wife, and I actually worked for her, and I took this employee-employer relationship to a new level. And and we got married, and we were married for almost 20 years. And 6 years into that marriage, in June of 1986, I wound up in Alcoholics Anonymous. So, I did what everybody else did. I started drinking to have fun, drinking to live, and I wound up living to drink, or the other way around. When I was living to drink to have fun, I wound up drinking to live. And I didn't know what was going on with me. When I drank, I felt a lot better. I fit in. I had absolutely no fear whatsoever. I never did have any sense, but I liked who I was when I was drinking. And I didn't like who I was when I wasn't drinking. And then when I started getting in trouble with that, because I came from a background, a family that had a lot of alcoholism, I compared my drinking to theirs, and I never was as bad as them. In retrospect, when I take a look at that, I was worse than they were. So I hit my first bottom when I was 32 years old, and I came to Alcoholics Anonymous at 32. And I was still married at the time to my second wife. I still had a job. I had a house, and I measured myself the way guys like me measure myself. If I look okay, and I'm doing okay, and I'm making enough money, and I can live the way I can live, then I must be all right. It's not my fault, it's yours. And then I blacked out in a funeral the first time I came into AA, and wound up in 2 different states when I came to, and everybody took a real dim view of that. I was not very well appreciated. People were really upset, so I decided I needed to do something about my drinking. And I'll tell you what happened to me. I went to AA and everything got great. I got a sponsor. I went to this outpatient treatment thing. And it's just like I hear today over and over and over, and it's true. When you go to Alcoholics Anonymous and you get a sponsor and you do what they tell you to do, things get better. They don't get easy all the time, but they get much better. And my life was great. I was sober for 15 years. And I was on a retreat team for 7 years. I spoke at conferences all over the place. I did all that stuff. I sponsored people. I had a sponsor, and everything was great. And I can remember my 7th year. I always think about that year as that being my best year because I focused on humility, and there wasn't a problem in the world. And I always thought I'd be sober. I went to as many meetings as I could because I liked going to meetings, and everything was great until it wasn't. What happened was that I progressed through the company. I spent most of my career in manufacturing leadership, and after I was 7 years with the company when I went into the program, and less than 2 months after that, they promoted me, and then they promoted me anywhere from 18 to 24 months after that, the rest of my career. So I did a lot of things for John Deere. I started at corporate, and I retired from corporate, but in between there, I worked at almost every single John Deere factory on the planet. And my job was basically to run manufacturing. And John Deere is a UAW plant. I love those guys, and we had a lot of fun, and I learned a lot from those guys, and I was able to really succeed in that. And I was very blessed. What happened was that in 1996, I was sober 10 years. Her mother had passed away because of cancer, and she took that really hard, and I did not have the spiritual or the emotional maturity to handle that. And we didn't have any kids. She was an engineer also. She graduated from Purdue. At the time, I got promoted again and went back to corporate, and we had a good life, but we had this issue. She was really going through a tough time, and she couldn't control her father. Her father was dating. We buried her mother on a Tuesday. Her father started dating on a Friday, and that really upset her, understandably so. And it was like watching a comedy show. He would bring this woman to our house, and she would ask him, "Where'd you get this woman?" And he said, "Well, back then there was Find a Friend in the paper." She says, "You picked a woman to marry out of the paper like you pick a puppy." So it didn't get any better from that. So what happened? The reason I'm telling you this story is that I did not know that I didn't have the maturity, spiritually or emotionally, to handle that. And I sure as hell wasn't going to go tell my sponsor what was going on. Because I had been able to get sober. I had got sober. I'd been able to succeed in my career. I was living pretty well. by all metrics and all appearances, it looks like I was just fine. But I've got this woman now that I'm married to that's straight out of Cycles R Us that is after me every time I turn around and I'm not doing anything right, and I'm not having it. I'm just not having it. And one thing led to another, and I got another job where it enabled me to travel and be gone for like a month at a time. And when there was times I could come home, I didn't. I worked a lot at Augusta. Deere still has the lawnmowers that cut the golf course, and those lawnmowers are all programmed. Nobody rides them; they're programmed so that they know how to cut greens and all that stuff. And I was working with Augusta, and we had 2 tractor assembly factories down there, and I was running those. And rather than come home in the winter in Iowa, I'd stay down there and play golf and do things I wasn't supposed to do as a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, But it just, it was not my fault; it was hers. And one thing led to another. Excuse me. And we're going to get divorced, and then I got mad at her because she went to my sponsor, who went to his sponsor, and the next thing you know, all the whole AA community, it seemed to me, was talking about me and my divorce, and I am starting to fail and I'm starting to fall, which hurt my pride and hurt my feelings. And I had no idea that that's what was going on, but I wouldn't tell you what I was thinking, and I wouldn't tell you what I was feeling, because I thought, I'm supposed to be able to handle this after being in the program and doing all these things. I should have the answers. And I quit listening. So the next thing you know, I hate AA, and I hate both my sponsor and his sponsor, and I hate her, and I hate anybody that looks like her, and everything else. And then my family sided with her instead of with me, and poor little me, that hurt. So guess what I did? I drank after 15 years, and for the next 17 years, I almost died. After I got drunk after those 15 years, I felt absolutely, completely demoralized. And what they say about in the book about that feeling of incomprehensible demoralization, that's exactly what I felt. And then, guys would come up to me and they say, people with long-term sobriety that go out and drink again usually die drunk. So I wasn't really getting a lot of positive comments. And I started figuring out the reason I wasn't is because I was so arrogant. And I didn't know I was arrogant. My sister used to tell me I was arrogant, and I used to tell her, I'm not arrogant, you're just stupid. Because I couldn't figure out, if she can't think the way I'm thinking, then she's wrong. And I'm not, I'm a lot of things, but I'm not arrogant. But I would tell you anything about me that you'd want to know. And then I'd throw some things in there to make me look a lot better than I was. And by this time, the brother behind me and my youngest brother also got in the program. And they're still sober today. And my sister isn't in the program because she's not an alcoholic, because she figured out that the only time she gets drunk is when she drinks. And I told her, I'm just shocked you're not on Jeopardy. But we like her more drinking today than not drinking, because she's still working on her story. But the thing is, they would come to me because I'm the oldest. Now they're going to come and rescue me, So I got 2 brothers and a sister, Bill, Bob, and Dr. Laura, trying to tell me, how to live. And it just didn't get any better. So I started to drink. And I'm telling you, after 15 years, by this time, when I was 47, it didn't work like it did before. It was horrible. And I didn't drink very long. And when I knew that I couldn't do what I had to do, I had to go back with my tail between my legs. So to save face and to save pride and to show everybody that I could still do it, I get married again. And she was in the program. And that was and then I buy a new house, and then I start building houses. And I don't build houses. I can't make a sandwich. But what I'm doing is I'm going to start building houses and selling them, all that stuff. So I got all this money wrapped up in houses. And then that relationship goes south, which I knew. I knew the day we got married that was a mistake. But see, it's all about looking good and not looking bad. It's all about trying to bounce back and show everybody that I can do this. And I was sober that time for 5 years, and then I went out. And for the next 17 years, from 2000 to 2017, I was in and out, in and out. So I was sober 15 years, then 5 years, then 4 years. And this last time, I was sober 7 years. And, for a long time, I always heard about people saying that they haven't lost their job yet, or they haven't lost their houses yet, they haven't lost their family yet. And I experienced every single one of those yets. And the day that I started playing this new game called Let's Go to Jail. So I'm kind of speeding up a little bit, but let me back up. before I got drunk this last time, I was working in Minnesota, and I was running a company. I retired from Deere in 2004, and decided I was going to play golf and not work anymore. And then some people I knew came and asked me if I'd run their company, so I did that. So from 2004 until today, I've been running companies at different spots, and I'd run them for a while, and then I'd either quit or they'd tell me it wasn't working, and then I'd go play golf or I'd go do something stupid, and then I'd get a job again and all that other kind of stuff. Because by then I didn't have any family. My family wouldn't talk to me about both my parents had passed away, and they were both angry when they passed away with me, and I gave them reason to do that because of my behavior. A lot of the things that I said, I still have this ability to cut people just in half with my tongue and all this stuff, and I really have that good ability to show you how you're wrong and I'm right. And thank God I have seen that. Thank God the people that love me are working with me on that today, and I'll tell you about that too. But I had come up to run this company, and I decided after the third divorce that there's no time. I don't need to get married again, because I always thought all I got to do is find somebody that really loves me and I really love them, and we're going to be happily ever after. We're put on this world to love, and I'm the kind of guy that when I find something that doesn't work, man, I like to stick to it, right? So I decided that I wasn't going to do that. I was in Minnesota running this company, and I got moved to New York City, and about a month before I was going to go to New York City, I was getting my hair cut in Spirit Lake, and this girl was very nice to cut my hair, but it's like getting interrogated by the police. What are you doing? Who are you dating? What are you seeing? What do you do for fun and everything else? And I would tell her. The only thing I didn't tell her is I fought crime at night, but just give her an answer so she'd quit talking to me. And then finally she gave me this phone number. She says, I want you to call this lady. You'd really like her, and you two would hit it off as a couple, right? So now I'm getting dating advice from somebody that's cut my hair, and I'm not looking for dating. I don't want anything like that. I'm old, and I got no. I don't want to do that. So, but I took the phone number because I'm always thinking of others. I don't want to hurt their feelings. Put the phone number in my pocket. Anyway, the last day I'm cleaning out my office before I go to New York, there's this phone number laying on there on my desk, and I can't figure out where that phone number is from, which is never a good sign. But then I get thinking, and I remembered where I got that phone number. So I called this girl. She answered, and we talked, and then I went to New York, and we had a nice conversation. And so I'm in New York with nothing to do. A couple of days later, just for something to do, I give her a call. And we talked, and we had a nice conversation. And that's how I met this woman that I'm with today. And for 3 months or more, we called each other and texted each other. We became friends. And then when I was done in New York, rather than travel back I had a house in the Quad Cities, I just flew from LaGuardia to Sioux Falls, and I came to meet her face to face the first time. And I wasn't drinking. Now, I was going to meetings occasionally, but I wasn't really into it. Didn't read the book, didn't have a sponsor, I would go to the meeting when I was either really bored and looking for something, and I knew if I didn't do something, I'd drink again, or I really didn't have anything to do, honestly. And then I'd go to meetings and tell everybody I've been sober since 1986, and I never want to look bad. But I came back and I met her, and I knew that she was the one. I thought, this is it. My life is solved, right? So we started seeing each other, and this was in October, and I didn't really go back to work after I worked for the same company that I did when I came back from New York, but I really didn't go back to work. I just did what they wanted me to do, and I didn't work a full day and all that other kind of stuff. And anyway, one thing led to another. In June of 2017, first weekend when I was in Omaha, Nebraska with her, visiting some college friends, and I wasn't drinking, and I hadn't planned on drinking, and these girls were drinking wine, and me being the gentleman, I'd get up and go get them a glass of wine, and I'd take the wine back to them, and I'm Catholic, and I just looked at the wine bottle. I've never been a wine drinker, and I thought, I wonder what that tastes like, and that's all I thought. I took 2 hits out of that, and I was off and running. And then we played this game that I've never played before called Let's Go to Jail, and I didn't think that stuff was possible. So I started drinking, and I couldn't stop. The next day I drank a whole quart. The next day I was up to 1.5 quarts, and it was just that quick. I'm off and running. And she lived in Spirit Lake, and I was living with her at the time, and she had never seen a wide, live awake drunk before. And she would leave for work and I'd drink all day and come home, and you can imagine what the place looked like and what I looked like because I've been boozing all day. And she actually had to get me evicted. And all those things that I promised her and all those things we went through and all that fun just kind of went right out the window. And we took a person that we would call normal, that doesn't know what this disease is, has never seen it live and up front, being absolutely terrified. And she wound up getting a restraining order, so they threw me out of the house. And that's when I started getting picked up, everything from drunk driving to public intox and all that other stuff. I wound up losing my car. And I went to jail like 7 times and for drinking. And one time I went to jail because allegedly I stole somebody's car, and they really got pissed off over that. They really get upset over that. And of course, when I'm drinking, I think I'm somebody that I'm not, so every time they want to arrest me, I have to resist, I don't know what like in Sioux Falls, but I'll tell you in Spirit Lake, Iowa, you hit one cop and 15 of them come out of the sky. That's a really sensitive group. They really, really don't like that stuff. And I'm goofy enough to think I can do it. By this time, I'm 63 or whatever I was. That's the other thing. Whenever I catch myself telling people how old I am, I've never heard a normal person say, I'm 65 years old. You don't have to tell me that. I say that all the time to everybody when they're trying to tell me what to do. You've got some insecurity problems and some living problems, and you have to announce your age because you don't have to tell me that. I'm supposed to have gotten that. But they kept taking me back and putting me in the same cell with all these other people, and so I had the same guy. So I guess they thought that I wouldn't be lonely. But I was put in a cell with a guy that was in for arson and one that was in for murder. And the time that I came back after stealing the car, which I don't remember doing, I kind of remember doing it, but I don't really remember. It was never my intention. I didn't have keys. I didn't have a car. There was one there. I took it. That's what I thought. And I was drunk on top of that, which apparently adds to the charges. And so, they tased me. I wouldn't get out of the car, so they tased me 3 times, and that did nothing. And I'm full of booze, and that did nothing but just upset me. And, so they had to overpower me, and that was not very much fun. And I was a little bit beat up. So when they took me back to jail, I went through all that processing stuff, back in the same cell, carrying the same blanket, I think, and everything else, going back to the same bed, and I'm sitting there, and I got blood all over me, and everything aches. And I'm still hammered. I'm sitting there looking down at my feet, and I hear these people shuffle up, and there's these 4 feet that I'm looking at. And here's the arsonist, and here's the murderer. And the arsonist puts his hand on my shoulder and says, dude, you've got to quit drinking. And the murderer says to me, yeah, it's going to kill you, right? So I'm thinking, I've reached the point where I'm getting 12-step by an arsonist and a murderer in a jail cell, and it's not my fault, And that's the way it went. And every time I would get out, that time my bail was $11,000. Most of the time it was $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000. I still had enough left to get out. And I couldn't get anybody to come and sign for me because it's probably the same way here. If the person that's signing are going to, what do you call it, make your bail, they've got to have a job, and they've got to have a house, and they've got to have proof that they can pay it back. Well, I didn't know anybody up there. And my family thought, just leave him in there. They don't he's not dead. And so they weren't going to do anything. And that's the way it went. Every time I got out, I wound up getting drunk. The last time I got out, I was walking down Highway 9 in Spirit Lake, wearing a pair of swimsuit, a paper shirt that I got from the hospital on one of the trips, and no shoes, and these jail papers. And that's where all these degrees that I got and all these awards that I got, that's where it got me. I had an award, honorary degree from Virginia Tech School of Business when I went to Deere, when I worked for Deere, because I was out there doing a couple of things. I got an engineering degree, I got a chemistry degree, I got all these degrees. And that's the only thing, everything else I'd lost, but that's where it got me. And I'd never been homeless before. I had never been on the street before. I'd never been without a car, never been without a place to sleep, never been without anything. And that's all I had, no clothes, no nothing. And so, I did what I normally do in those situations. I went to Walmart and stole more booze. And that was on a Tuesday. And then on a Saturday night, I walked to a church from this hotel that I was staying at. I have no idea to this day how I was able to do that, stay in that hotel, because I don't remember having any money. But I walked to this church to go to an AA meeting, and I thought it started at 7, and it didn't start until 8. And I've been drinking for days, and I thought, these guys are late, and they're not really too serious about their program if they can't be here on time. And so cops started going by, so I climbed an evergreen tree to hide, right? And then I fell out of the evergreen tree. And then those guys started showing up, so I went over to the church window and banged on the thing, and they let me in, and I got all these things sticking out of me and everything else. And they asked me where I'd been. I said, hiding in the evergreen tree. And, why? Well, because there's police out there. And like, it made sense to me. They thought I was nuts. And that was the last night I drank, and that was not planned. And the next morning, I woke up at this hotel, and there's this phone number that I have no idea where it came from, laying on next to the bed. Now, when I've been drinking before, and I wake up with a phone number, that's not a good sign. And making the call is not a good sign either, because when I'm calling, I don't know who I'm talking to, and I'm trying to find out what I did, and normally I find out what I did and stop. Then I wonder why I called. So it's either the girl that answers or it's a husband that answers. And that's even worse, But I've learned that when the husband answers, just say, your wife really drinks too much, because I'll figure I'm terrified. Why shouldn't he be? And but it was really a bad sign. I called this number, and it happened to be a lady that ran the halfway house. And she said that she had known that I was in trouble, and that she had a bed if I was sober, and she would come and get me. I had nowhere else to go, and I didn't have any money. So that's what she did. And she came and took me to this halfway house. And she gave me this blanket and this pillow and the sheets and told me where this cot was and said, make your bed. And I could not do that. Couldn't do that. So this is Sunday morning. In Spirit Lake, the halfway house is a block away from the library. 10:30 Sunday mornings, there's a meeting at that library. And she picked me up about 20 minutes after 9. I knew there was that meeting there. So I asked her if I could walk down to that meeting. And she said yes. And I walked into that meeting. And I'd been to that meeting before. And they're all older guys. I call them near-deads. Today I am a near-dead, but they've been around forever, right? And I was really, because for a long time I wondered, how do people stay sober 25 years? By the way, I enjoyed Pat and Matt's story. I really did, because it's amazing to me. People that are able to stay sober that long, it's just, because I was not able to do it. And the worst part about that is I couldn't figure out why. Why couldn't I get this? Because I can do a lot of other things. I've been seen to be successful, and I've always got what I wanted, whether it be sports or work or anything else. But when it comes to my life, and it comes to women, and it comes to you, and it comes to have to stand in line at the grocery store, when somebody's got 14 items and a 12 item, I can't handle that. I mean, they got to die, I got to die. I can't handle that stuff. And that's the way my life's always been, so I could never figure that out. But these guys who knew, apparently they saw me the night before, and I don't remember that. But I sat down with that meeting. They came up and talked to me, and they said, there's another meeting tonight at the house. Are you going to go to that? Well, yeah, I didn't know that's where I'm staying. And then that night, there's a guy came up as my sponsor, and he's here tonight with his sponsor. I brought both those guys along because I knew they needed my help. But he came up to me and said, you got a sponsor? I said, no. He says, well, you do now. And he worked the steps with me and all the traditions. But, the next Monday night, there was a meeting, and I went to that. Now, I didn't have a car, so I had to ask for a ride. I've never asked for anything. People would ask me for rides when I was here the first time. And if I had time to do it, I'd do it. If it made me look good, I'd do it. If I didn't want to do it, I'd say, no, I can't. That's the kind of guy I was. It's a wonder I didn't drink sooner, because I didn't get it. I didn't get it. So I went to every single meeting that I could go to. So between Spirit Lake and Milford, there's 10 at the time. I think it's still true. Now there's 11. There's 10 meetings a week. Almost all of them, with the exception of 1, 2, 3, are at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. The other 3 are the 2 in the morning, and one's at noon at the Discovery House. But I went to all those meetings. So I had to learn how to ask for rides. And then I learned how to make my bed. And I had to learn how to read again. And I've read that book over and over and over. And I read the 12 and 12. And I used to teach that stuff, at retreats and all that stuff. And, I wasn't thinking about drinking. I wasn't thinking about where I can get booze, I didn't have a plan. How am I going to get a car? How am I going to get money? How am I going to, all the other times I had a plan. I had a way out. I knew how to bounce back, you know, and if it didn't look good, I'd move. And I did. But I didn't have a plan because I was just wondering, when am I going to die? Because I really felt like I was going to die. And I knew, you know, drinking was never the answer, it was never the solution. I know why I did it. You know, I did it because I've had it. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And I've had that attitude my entire life. And you're not going to stop me. And that almost killed me. So the reason I tell you that is that I kept going to meetings to go to meetings. Because I really, first of all, I was going to those meetings because I thought I really don't have anything else to do. But you know, the deal was, these guys cared. Now, when you hate yourself, and you're full of guilt, and you're full of shame, and you're absolutely overburdened with remorse, for a guy like me, it's not easy to recognize that people genuinely mean, it's nice to see you, and they genuinely mean, please come back, and they genuinely mean, please do anything you can do not to drink between now and the time you come back. I didn't get that. But I didn't drink because I didn't want to drink. I was just wondering, where am I going to be when I die? Because that's the way I felt. And then so, you know, I started feeling better. And then they started giving me stuff to do. And so they asked, you know, so I was sober 3 or 4 weeks, and they had this anniversary on Sunday morning, and they asked me to speak at that. You know? And so, okay, I'll do that. And then I cried. And I didn't cry at my parents' funeral. I can't remember the last time I cried. Now I'm living in a Discovery House. I'm waiting to die. And every time I turn around, I'm crying. And I'm thinking, there's something wrong with me. You know, next thing you know, I'm going to be a cross-dresser. I mean, I couldn't figure out where all this stuff was coming, you know. I called my sponsor about 2 weeks ago and asked him, why am I doing all this crying? And he says, it's gratitude. And that made sense to me. When you're a guy like me that did the things that I did and hurt the people that I hurt and humiliated the people that I humiliated by design and intention, and you feel unlovable anyway, it's pretty much of a miracle when somebody comes up and puts their arm around me and says, you know, it's going to be okay, just keep coming back. Now, I've seen that happen over and over and over, years and years and years, and I did that, you know. I did that with other people. But I don't think I know I didn't have the heart and the honesty that these guys had when they told me that. So anyway, I'm going to meetings and they keep giving me stuff to do. So now the next thing they gave me to do was to be the secretary of the Saturday night group at the church where the Evergreen was that I fell out of. So you be here every Saturday night and do this. So I'm doing that. And then the next thing you know, we have a pre-winter rally, which is how I met you guys the first time. They said, get on this thing and do this, this, and this. So I did that. And then they said, be a GSR. So then I did that. And then, you know, we figured out, a bunch of guys are sitting around before football started a year ago, this past August, and or maybe it was this last August. Said, you know, we need a Saturday morning meeting before football. Football starts at 11. And so we started that. And, you know, I keep doing those things because I like to do those things because I do feel a part of. But the thing is, people ask me to do it, and I know that I have a real issue with this people-pleasing thing. But, you know, they gave me rides and they really cared, so I can do that for them. I don't know how to be a GSR. I don't know the difference between GSR and HBO, right? So now you want me to be a GSR. All right, so I'll do that. So now I'm learning how to do that. I don't know anything about rallies. I used to go to a lot of those things, used to speak at them. I've never been on a committee, never did any work because I was too busy. You know, the first time I was sober, I didn't. Then my sponsor wanted me to go to a business meeting, and I said, I can't because I'll get collected for murder. Those guys are stupid. I can't do it. So I never did that. Never volunteered for anything. Now, if you wanted me to chair, you wanted me to speak, you wanted me to be the center of attention, I'm the guy, I'm the guy. You want me to do something like wash ashtrays or pick up stuff, I'm not that guy. We'll get somebody else to do that. I'll just assign that, you know, because I got people working for me, I'm too important. And that's who I was. I'm still that guy today. But when I'm with you, I'm not. That's why I want to be in this meeting. That's why I want to be with alcoholics every chance I get. And I really see a clear distinction between who we are and who I thought normal people were. And I thought that was the end goal. Well, it's not. I don't want to be a normal person. If you talk to those guys, normal person, seriously, they're nuts. That's not, we were talking about that on the way up. I don't want to be normal. I want to be me. I want to be you. For the first time in my life, I never ever wanted to be me. So I'm dating this girl. By the way, she cried every night for 3 months, and we got back together, and we're together today. So let me tell you some of this thing about God's grace that I didn't know anything about. One last story on the normal thing. Last fall, well, there was a picnic, and it was on a Sunday night, and then there was a speaker meeting afterwards. And I was speaking at that meeting, and we were at the lake under the shelter, and of course you got all these tornadoes and all these winds and dark clouds coming in, and we're going to have this horrible storm. And she's normal, so she's got a phone, so she's looking on the weather thing on the phone, right? It looks like we're going to get blown away, and everybody is still sitting there. They're sitting everybody in the program. They're sitting on the bench. They're drinking coffee. They're eating. They're laughing. They're joking. Everything else. And we got lawn chairs flying by and bodies flying by and everything else. And drunks, we don't get too excited about that kind of stuff, right? And she is absolutely, terrified, right? She thinks she's going to wind up in Oz or something, And she finally says to me, "Why don't you take me home and you can come back because this scares me?" I said, "Okay." So I put her in the car and I'm taking her back to the house. And she says, "I don't understand those people. They have no sense. They see the weather, how terrible it is. They're just sitting there drinking coffee, having a good time. And we're going to get tornadoes. It's going to be horrible." And I said to her, "You have to understand that group's strong suit is not surrender. We don't get upset about that." But she got completely, uncorked by that whole deal. I went back and then we moved the thing into the Discovery House, and that's just the way we live. I'm more comfortable being with that than anything else. So about a year ago, I'm in Arnold's Park at this resort, Bridges Bay, having dinner with my sponsor and my sponsor, and now I'm in the 3/4 house. And I could get out pretty quick, so I got to start to look for a place to live. And they got these new condos that they're building right on the lake. And, I haven't got 25 cents, much less enough money to put a down payment on anything. But by then I've already got a job. I got a job. I got the permit to drive a car. I was able to borrow a car and put one of those breathalyzer things in there. I still have that in my car now. I call it Fred. He and I are pretty close. He's the most neediest thing in the world. I always got to pick him up, blow into him. But, so I got a job and everything else, and I'm at this restaurant with my sponsor and his sponsor having dinner, and I noticed they're doing this building. So the next day I make a few calls, and I'm able to move into one of these places. That's God's grace. Not because it's a nice place, but the thing is, it's a place for me to live. Now I am self-supporting through my own contributions. Same thing with the job. There's an ad in the paper, so I applied for it. Turns out one of the guys that goes to meetings, the vice president, he says, "This is what we need." And I got that job. And I love that job. I have all operations. There's 3 plants, and I'm responsible for all the manufacturing operations in 3 plants, Missouri, New York, and Gretinger, Iowa. And then I've got all the business processes. And I love that thing because what I do is I help people. I tell the people, my job is to help you. If I can't help you, my job's not to hurt you. And I live that today. I don't need to be director. I don't need to be the general manager. I've been all those things before. I want to be the guy that helps the guy that needs the help, that wants to learn. And I want to be the guy that still says hello to the guy that doesn't want to learn, that has the attitude that, "How you doing? What can I do for you today?" And watch him change. It's not that I'm any big change, because I'm not. I'm not the guy that does that. But, I get these things from Don about the daily meditation, and I really study St. Francis's prayer, the 3 parts. And I don't do this very well at all, but I work on it every single day, every single minute. My job is to love you, to comfort you, and to understand you. Don't worry about me. And even though I understand you, I don't have to agree with you, but it doesn't say I'm supposed to correct and fix you. Love, comfort, and understand. And then all of a sudden, this relationship comes. My family still won't talk to me. God will take care of that. But I have a family in Alcoholics Anonymous that's unbelievable. Now, when I was sitting out there and I was 32 or 33, and somebody, a near dead like me, stood up here and said that kind of stuff, I would think to myself, I feel sorry for you. It's too bad. It's too bad I thought like that. Because the gift that I got from Alcoholics Anonymous and the people in Northwest Iowa absolutely saved my life. So I've been sober since August 14th, 2017. I am more proud of being sober today, from the time I got up until the time I go to bed, than I am of anything in the entire world. Because I did not do that. God did that. And I don't hear God unless I hear you. And I've accepted that. My job is not to figure things out or come up with the answer, come up with the solution. When we were in engineering school, they taught us how to identify the problem and the distinction between the problem and the symptom. They taught us how to identify the solution, and then they taught us how to create the vehicle from the problem to the solution. When I took my 5th step with the priest this last time, he told me that the reason I'm good at that kind of stuff, because I grew up in an alcoholic home and I have learned how to make order out of chaos. And professionally, that's what I do. Now, I couldn't do that in my own life. So that tells me that everything that I went through when I was growing up, I was supposed to go through. And everything I went through till the time I